We're live. Hi. Well, hi.
Hello.
Hi.
We're back.
We are back, and we are
Yes.
excited to be here.
Yes,
Yes.
we are.
As I mentioned, for the 2 seconds, Amina, I am totally fangirling over you. So I can't wait to have this conversation and kind of take in all that you have to offer to us and our audience.
Oh,
And
thank
before
you.
we do that, let's introduce. This is Kiss and Tell Magazine. This is our podcast, and our special guest tonight is Amina Peterson.
Yes.
Welcome.
Yay.
Yay. I would like to also introduce a little bit more about Amina, just for those that don't know and aren't for sure, is she does have, and please correct me anything. Of course, it's strange to have somebody talk about you sometimes, isn't it, if you're sitting right there? So interject whatever needs to happen. Atlantic Institute of Tantra and Divine Sexuality, still a thing? Yes?
Still a thing.
Okay. I did look just to make sure, but I want to. So again, I'll say that she is the owner, right? And provider of amazingness as far as, again, an Atlanta Institute of Tantra and Divine Sexuality. The website is there. And I just want to share a little bit of some of the focus. You were on Sex, Love, and Goop on Netflix, and so we can talk about that if there's those types of questions. However, for, again, the rest of the folks that if you didn't see that, then, and I pulled this from your site and just some of the things that I've read about you, Amina, on feminine, divine, and worship, and these are part of your core beliefs and practices: intentional touch, sacred sex and intimacy, existing consciously, clearing sexual shame, guilt, and fear, recognition of the inner masculine and feminine, and sex magic. And so I just want to share a little bit of that, because that's kind of the direction I know my questions are going to be, but then for the audience to also know a little bit more about what your work actually is outside of just what Netflix and the agenda might have been for that. So thank you so much again from Sabrina for you joining us with Kits and Tell. And so I've already told the ladies I've got some selfish questions that will benefit others, but once we get there. So thank you again, and welcome to being on here with us.
So let's introduce you, ma'am. Can you tell us a little more about yourself, and then we'll, kind of go around the table. Dr. Jenny, Stephanie, I'm Steph. I'm just a layman here to ask annoying questions and fill in the blank space. So, Sabrina, can you tell me a little more about yourself while we start?
Sure, we'll do this again real quick. So more than anything, Amina, I'm a sex therapist and transcendental therapist as well. And an alternative holistic provider. But more than that, like, what I'm really excited for us to be able to bring together in this way and in this forum really is then and then this speaks to my interest as well, and my work in being interested with yours. What are the practical magic, sex magic, intimacy magic, two humans trying to share space together magic, on how do we bridge those gaps for communication, for touch, for the healing that we know is possible, the access for that. So that's along the lines of my own work. And what are those tools? What are those ways that we can teach? So then that's also going to be the kind of things that I'm interested with you for being here. So my introduction also helps to introduce you.
I love it. Thank you.
Yes.
So I'm Dr. Jenny. I'm a sexologist. I'm the CEO and founder of KissandTellMagazine.com. And the reason I'm truly happy that you're here, Amina, is because what spoke to me when you were on Netflix is your openness. Your openness with the topic of sex. And even though people do talk about it on a lot of ways, it's still not open enough. And that's why I want you to talk about for the audience how they can make this an everyday conversation and lessen the shame around this topic. So,
yes.
Beautiful. Thank you. Stephanie.
Me. I'm Stephanie Bellil. I am co-creator and founder with Dr. Jenny
I'm also a personal trainer, dealing with neuromuscular diseases, more like Parkinson's and ALS on a daily basis. That's my reward. Love it. And I like doing this too and learning all about new things and excited to be here.
Great. So let's dive in, Amina, because I would like to start if nobody else, if everybody else will indulge me. So you made me bawl my eyes out during the sex, love, and goop thing. So I'd really love to get into the body image and just like accepting and acknowledging yourself, your sexuality, what makes you who you are, and how to enjoy and communicate those things to other people. So I think Sabrina would be a good resource for that because she's much more eloquent than I am.
Go for it.
So I know that's definitely a topic we'd like to cover. So Sabrina, if you have any questions on that.
Let's start with that and let's let Amina do her thing. And I would love to just start learning and hearing and absorbing if that works. I am going to change the view real fast so we can see your face fuller, like in the screen, if that's okay, friends. So just give me half a piece of a second so that I can do that. Is that all right, Amina?
Yeah, that works great for me.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So I'll change it to where you can see the rest of our faces in a moment. But for right now, this is what we got.
Okay, this works for me. That's fine.
Beautiful. So I would love to just start beginning to hear from you and the work that you're doing and where you're at. What's the message that you're bringing now?
So the message that I'm bringing really is just allowance. It's really the key underlying theme for the work that I do, the work that many of you witnessed on Sex, Love, and Goop. And the way that I see us moving forward also in this work is just actually coaching and guiding and leading our own selves to a space of allowance. And so in order for that to happen as it comes to the body image, it's how much do we actually allow the body to be, right? Like without critique, without judgment, without anger and frustration, or even without desiring that it's something else, without any of that. Do we just have the opportunity to allow? And in that moment, in that time that we give it, where we give ourselves, okay, I'm just going to allow my body to be, what does that feel like? Like, what is it like if we're able to allow ourselves to be and not have any outside influence dictating what our body is supposed to do or what our body is supposed to, produce, how it's supposed to show up just as it is. How does that feel? And so the base of my message is just getting us to that point. I think if we can get to that point, there's a lot of wisdom in the body. And so if we can allow ourselves to be in our bodies with it just being, then we might actually have access to some of that wisdom.
Oh, I have so many things already, but I don't want to hijack this. So if anybody else has things to say, like,
let's see if Dr. Jenny or Steph have anything that they want to ask, because I know you and I are just gonna come in hot.
I have so many things. So basically, just to sum up that though, real fast, is the without judgment. Like just the being with the body without judgment. And isn't that what compassion is? Isn't that what then self-love is? And, I know that that's a question that we get a lot on. What does that mean? And when we throw this around, especially in the therapy world and all of this of, oh, you have to love yourself. It's being able to look in the mirror without immediately just deciding that we need to go to everything that can tear us down. If you can't say something good, can we at least just be? And can we be neutral? And can we just be accepting of what is? And that's what, I'm getting from kind of, what obviously there was lots of what you said, but the essence of that.
And looking in the mirror and not looking for what's wrong, and looking in the mirror to kind of be like, oh, this is my body. And that's something that I brought away from, just seeing you was, okay, instead of being like, this is what's wrong, I'm looking to make this something else. kind of looking at like, these are my strengths and this is, what's great about me. And this is me. And I am me. And that's, I mean, that's all I can be. I strive to be, the best me. But, that was something that really spoke to me. And again, like, just made me like, start like crying. So I'd love to kind of give that off to everybody, because I don't have a sex therapy background. I'm just the layman in this situation. So,
But you know what I think you're talking about? It's almost like a deeper level of meditation. How you can get rid of all of that we've been taught our whole lives of what we're supposed to feel like and look like. That's important. I mean, to get rid of all these thoughts and just being able to be there. I mean, it would bring you to a whole nother level of pleasure, and just to get rid of all of that would be wonderful for most of us,
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think it also gives us a chance to get to know the noise that comes up when we're actually having sex, because
Mm,
you're going to have that conversation with your in your head in the bed. You just
yeah.
don't do it. You don't
Right.
realize that you actually can have that conversation somewhere else first, and
Right.
and sort through some of the muck and say,
Get
all
rid of
right,
it.
well, yeah, right, get rid
Yeah.
of some of it because you
Right.
don't need it.
something.
It's not always there for
Yeah,
you.
it's
So,
messing things up.
Can you speak
mhm.
a little bit more to that? Would you please, Amina, or even if Stephanie, if you've got thoughts on that too,
Yeah, so
about
my
what?
question though for that, and I'm so sorry to cut you off, Sabrina, is
Mm.
there was something about like during the special, and again, I may be misremembering this, but I don't think so because it impacted me, was, what we think we should be. And even if we're like, oh, well, I watched porn, like I have to sound like that, or I have to be like that, or I have to do these things. So I'd love to hear kind of how we can figure out what we sound like and what we want
Right.
to look like, instead of being like, let me suck it in and push it up and like I have to.
Right. I'm breathing up here and I'm
Yeah.
trying to suck my stomach in so nobody notices that I actually have a belly in this
Yeah.
moment. And then I'm going to make these sounds that sound nothing like me. So one of the things that I like to do is when I work with couples, and especially even when I work with groups, is getting folks to just get primal with noise. And so the invitation to me is to like create a space where you can actually play with sound and get to know what your own sound is like. I used to really have some issues with my voice. How I ended up doing podcasts and such, I will never. It's a bumpy road to get there. But one of the things that really helped me before, I thought my voice was too deep. I thought, this is not feminine, according to everything that everybody tells me. And so
I
I
think
used to,
it's sexy.
well, thank you. I've
You're
grown to
welcome.
love it. But
Yeah.
I used to alter it. I used to talk a little bit lighter and try and talk
Oh.
softer so that no one would notice that I had bass,
Mm,
right? And we do that when we have sex a lot of times. Like we go into this like, and that's not the sound that sound doesn't
no.
match my voice. It's a sound that I learned, and we are socialized into sound because it's communication. So it's not something that's completely broken about us. It's just this is how we human, right? I learned to
Hmm.
say when something tastes good. And then there are other sounds that we make for pleasure and pain, and these are communal, and vary based on the culture. Our culture is one that sex sound is breathy, and that may
Hmm.
not be serving us. And so as we start to pay attention to like, well, what sounds do I make when it feels good, when things feel good in general? How am I
Hmm.
in pleasure, and why is this pleasure being treated so differently? You know what I'm saying? Like how do I
Hmm.
show up when something feels good? What do I do? What does it feel like? Do I hug myself, or do I desire to be cradled? Is that something that's a communication? That's some information that I may want to be able to share with my partner, or that I may need to know about myself. Like, what are the ways that I show up? How does sound come to me when I experience pleasure in general. And because a lot of our pleasure sounds are performative, though, and that's what happens is when we start having this conversation, we realize that a lot of the pleasure is to convince the
Mm.
other person that they're pleasing us, and not
Yes,
necessarily
it is.
showing that we're in pleasure.
Right. Totally.
Oh my gosh, or performative. I'm taking notes. You could probably hear my clickety clacking happening and all of this. So, Amina, so good. And I love that. Like, I've had an absolute issue with this, and lots of the people that I see, sound, to make a pleasurable sound, like even massage in places that you would think one would give themselves permission to ooh, and that was fun, to ooh and ah, and to and sigh and things like that. And for me, as I was learning to give myself permission with sound in particular, and to speak truth, that all that is tied in together, this is so much harder,
Mm-hmm.
or we make it be so much harder than what it needs to be. Do you have any thoughts? Is it really just the just do it encouragement for those folks that it was terrifying. It was terrifying for me to audibly acknowledge myself in that way with partner, right?
Mm-hmm.
Any tips, tricks, thoughts on what we share with the listeners on for those people
Give
that
us all
sound
the
like a
tips.
terrifying venture?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
when I hear someone say that, my question is like immediately, well, okay, that's terrifying. Terror is a real big emotion, right? So what was terrifying about it? What's on the other side of terror, right? Like I'm terrified. So what's on the other side of that? What happens when I
Yep.
make this sound?
Mm-hmm.
And so because that's where we have to dance. We have to go over there and dance and figure out like, well, if I make this sound, if I start making this sound and I sound really weird and they leave me.
Yep.
Okay, well then so now we have some information that there's
Yes.
some fear of abandonment that's showing up in your sex. You're not going to have great orgasms if you're having all this fear of abandonment show up. It's these little things that we can, that we can really speak to and teach to and understand about ourselves. I think one of the things that comes up often is like, well, what if I sound real weird? And I was newsflash, we all sound weird. Like we, the way that we communicate is very strange,
Yes.
and so let's just go ahead and get the weirdness out of the way. Let's sit and let's make some sounds. Let's see what it
Yeah.
sounds like. Maybe let's start with some purring and some moaning and
Yes.
some belly humming and let's
Yes.
see what happens if we go up real high, how that feels in our body. Let's see what happens if we get real low. Like, how do we play with sound so that we're familiar with it? Can we give ourselves an opportunity to be familiar with sound? Because if we can do that, then some of the unease about what I sound like can go away just because you've actually listened to your sound. The same way that the unease about what I look like goes away when you start looking at your body, right? Like you have to be here for you first, and then your partner
Right.
can jump in to your stuff. But first you got to get with you. You get used to your sounds, get used to your smells. I tell people with vulvas all the time, go ahead and taste your essence. Put your finger down there and taste it so you know what you taste like. You know what you smell like. Play with your cervical mucus and see what happens so that you can start to have an idea and you don't write a whole storyline when you get in the bed.
Right.
Oh, this is so good.
Well, it's being more natural, more instead of saying, "Is this natural to me to sound like this?" Half the time, like I said, it is a learned behavior, and our partners they don't care. They want us to be more natural.
Yes.
Yeah. They usually want to please us.
Right.
It does turn your partner on when they know that you're being pleased.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. Every time I watch porn, I put it on mute. I can't stand it. Like all the like, I'm like, Is this just like a recording of the same girl?
I
Yeah,
think so.
over and over
I
again.
think it's the same. Yeah, I think it's the
Yeah.
same
It's
person.
the canned noise, the same one,
I-
like
I
they have the
can't-
audience clapping.
No.
It's
It is.
that's ridiculous.
Studio audience.
Oh, I love it. Maybe.
I'm not completely unconvinced that
Canned
most porn
orgasm.
has somebody right in the audio booth later on doing
Yes.
voiceover
Oh, for
moans, 'cause
sure.
that's what it
Because
sounds
it's
like.
not matching what's happening in her
No.
mouth. No. And I'm like, what?
Hilarious.
Yeah, I've heard her before. You know?
So now I'm curious for people who, if you're watching or if you watch this later, and to put it in the comments, then for how many people have, like, do you watch porn on mute? Do you like do your own sounds? Is it
Depends who's
distracting? Are you listening to the
People
same
in the
sound
house.
over and over again? Like, and then where are we getting our cues? I mean, really, if nothing else, too, here we're talking about, and what you just said too, Amina, for that matter, is these are learned sounds. Until
Right.
we can honor and appreciate our own sound and whatever might come out. Where are we learning them from? So if you do watch porn a lot, no judgment, and go for you, that's great. Is that where you're learning? And are you copying those? And does that sound hot and sexy?
No,
What would
no.
your sound be? Look at you say,
And
no.
Long before I ever saw porn, my grandma watched the stories, and they had sex
Yes.
there, and the sounds sound the same on As the World Turns, and what other the rest of
The
them
Young
were.
and the Restless. The Bold
There
and
you
the
go,
Beautiful.
Young and the Restless. Yeah.
Yes.
The sounds were still the same. It's like there's this, the man doesn't make many sounds at all, and then and the woman is breathy and moany, and it sounds Grey's Anatomy. It doesn't matter what show it is. Like, it's we get our cues. This is what we're supposed to. This is why consent
Right.
doesn't happen,
Because
right?
it's all about making them happy, like boosting their ego. And that's half the time that's what it is about,
Yeah, the dark
that
and
stuff.
brooding versus the light and breathy.
You just said something.
That was the
Go ahead,
funny-
Jenny.
That was the funny part from When Harry Met Sally.
I was
Oh,
gonna
yeah.
When she did that fake
Did
orgasm,
we all learn? Although I didn't.
as we all learn, that's what
Yeah.
it sounds like.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Well, Amina, you just said something that was really important, and I want to see if maybe you can speak to it real quick, since time goes by so quickly. It's bananas. You said cues, and that, cues are a huge thing as far as us and being creatures of habit, and most people don't really understand that fully, but there it is. So when working, then let's say we want to work on our sounds. We want to understand our sounds, give ourselves permission to play here. We have to reprogram some of those cues, right? Like these sexuality of we only have sex in the bedroom. We only have sex when it's this time, or, on this side of the bed, or in this, it looks like this. We become very habitual in the stagnant sense, versus recognizing that we're taking cues from the environment. So let me get to what my point is. What I'm saying is, how do we then be mindful or do you teach it as a thing of reprogramming those cues in the environment when you're working with, whether it's an individual wanting to work on their sounds, or maybe couples that want to work on making more sounds together? Did I get that out? Did I get a question in there? I've got so many thoughts.
I think there was a good question in there.
There was.
I really feel like one of the things that happens is that we lose this ability to be playful, right? And so when you first start dating someone, when in the new relationship energy phase, everything is fun and playful, and there are no rules. We don't just have sex in the bed. We're having sex in the kitchen, on the counters. We are showing up at jobs and playing naughty in the parking lot.
Yes,
everything. Like, anywhere I can get it, let me get some.
Yep.
And then we settle in to our nesting style relationships, and we end up forgetting about all of that. And now you just have to fit into my regimen. Before, I was making all this time for you. And now you have to fit into my regimen. So the cues, then we just follow in line of the cues that we had set before us, which, our parents or our TV role models, however we came up with the story about what romance looks like once you settle down. And so we sound, look, and act like them. We move our love life to the bedroom only, like you said, only at night. These sounds are like this. They're easy to muffle. Now we may have coming up, so we got to put our face in the pillows. All of these things start shifting,
Mm,
and so it doesn't speak to desire. It doesn't speak to arousal, because now my arousal has to be on a schedule, and a lot
Mm-hmm.
of us experience spontaneous arousal, so that doesn't really work. um, and it does it, and eventually we start saying, well, I just have a low sex drive, right? Because I
Mm-hmm.
don't, which is really like, I don't want that thing that's happening. I don't want it to happen the way that it's happening, so never
mhm,
mind. That's what the body does. This is never mind, forget this plan. And so when we, if we know that's the route, then we can see that road ahead, and we can veer off, and we can take a left or a right or
mm,
whichever direction, but not that way, right?
mhm,
And so
mhm,
what that requires of us is a bit of time to be really mindful of our sound, our presence with each other, and to be playful as a lifestyle, right? To
mm,
invite that playfulness of new relationship energy into everyday life. Like, why am I just showing up with this facade of playfulness in order to get
mhm,
you? It's like there's like a,
Right.
like I'm fishing, and then once I get you, now I'm got you on the hook, and that facade is immediately gone. And we don't want that for ourselves. I work with
mhm,
women all the time who say, I don't know what happened to that woman. I miss her. I wish she was here.
mhm,
I long for her. And nobody wants that. We just somehow have convinced ourselves throughout socialization, through the same cues, these cues continue on, that this is how we're supposed to move. And so a lot of the work for me, if I'm working with a couple especially, is like, let's reinitiate some of that playfulness. Let's revisit
Mm.
some of the ways that we were, maybe in this relationship, maybe in previous ones. What are some things that you did that were like your exciting, spontaneous, fiery, rambunctious self that was full of desire and arousal? Where is that person at? What sounds does that person make when they're excited, when they're having fun? Like, what other things happen also when you're having sex beyond just, if this sound, huh, is the sound we make when we are feeling pleasure, then what is the sound you make when you're feeling excitement? And do you feel
mhm,
excitement in the bed? What is the sound that you make
mhm.
when you feel anxious, or when you're startled? And are you ever startled in the bed? I've been I've been startled in the bed. What sound? What sound do you make then?
Yeah.
So, and so it doesn't, this fake, this kind of forced monotony that we just fall into. It's the same, you know. It's almost, we ritualize it. And it's
Mm,
ritualizing boredom. So nobody wants that ritual.
And it should get
mm,
better when you're with somebody longer. You know how to please each other a little, it's not so it should get better
It should
anyway.
get better, right? Because you should
Yeah,
feel more
right.
safe to say what you need.
Right.
You should
Right.
have this now. Now I know I'm with you. Now I know I trust you. Let me tell you, I want to try this
Yeah.
thing. I didn't want to bring that
Yeah.
up when I first met you, but since you're
Right.
here, let me introduce you to my wall of toys. Like, after you.
Yeah, exactly.
that's how you'd think it would be, but how many
Right.
people are experiencing it completely the opposite? Or they never popped off with, like, maybe it's not the relationship that's the butterfly relationship that they were all exciting and wild passionate monkey scrumping all over the place and here and there. Maybe they never even started out that way, and so then to
Mm.
maybe they were like that in previous relationships or whatever's, but then, yeah, just going the opposite direction of, like you said, now we're going to call it a rut. Now we're going to just say, oh, my sex drive is, going to crap, or I never had one, over the fear of admitting what you want or whatever's. Any
Mhm.
last minute, is it a pep talk? Is it a gas yourself up? How do you get yourself over that little even hump fear, then to communicate with self or with partner, or to do the thing with self or with partner or others, however many, that
Y-
begins this playfulness? You know what
Yeah.
I'm asking?
I think you start by playing with yourself, and I mean that in all the ways possible.
Yes.
But
Yes.
start by being playful with yourself, right? You start by inviting yourself into just into just playfulness. So if that means, like, for me, sometimes what that means is getting fully like made up and putting on some Cardi B and dancing, playing in the mirror naked, and just looking at myself and telling my, like, realizing, like, okay, you still 45, we're still holding it in. Does this look good? I got it. Right. Sometimes you got to gas yourself up. Like,
Yes.
you have
Yes.
to be your biggest fan, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
And then inviting some of that playfulness out from there. But if you don't have it, when you get out there, it's gonna feel weird. It's just like, could you imagine going to a ballet where somebody just shows up and hasn't gone to any of the rehearsals? They just get on stage, they got some point shoes, and they start twirling around. Everybody's gonna be in the audience like, what is wrong with this person? And the person's not gonna feel very confident unless, for the most part, they probably will feel this awkwardness as well. And that's what happens. A lot of us are showing up into our relationships and into our sets without doing any pre-gaming. We're not doing any practice.
Right.
We're not checking out, like, what we actually like, and thinking about how we're going to be, or allowing ourselves to be. And then we get into the space, and we're supposed to just be perfect. Just everything's supposed to go great. It's not going to happen like that. So
Right.
spend some time getting to know yourself, being playful
Like
with
it's an
yourself.
event,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then invite your partner, invite your lovers into your playfulness. And the other end of the pep talk is what do you have to lose? Because
Right.
if they're not going to see
For
you
who
as
you
the way that
are.
you show up
Right.
and for who you are, they're leaving anyway. It's just going to sting more down the road. It's going to
Right.
hurt more down the road. But no one's staying with you. You're going to suffer. No one's going to stay
Right.
with you throughout all this process while you are hiding who you are. They'll find someone who doesn't hide. So
Right.
what do you have to lose? What do you have to lose?
Right.
Besides your time and your own enjoyment.
That is amazing. I just added that little banner. What do you have to lose? So, Amina, thank you so much. Jenny, is there anything that you want to leave off with, and for our next podcast, but before we say our thank yous and our welcomes and all of these things to Amina and her contact infos?
Now, Amina, can you tell the audience about your October workshop?
Yes. So the Atlanta Tantra Festival is, this will be our 4th annual. We had to pause in 2020, obviously, and we came back last year with a lot of very strict COVID protocols, but we're doing it again this year, and it is the only Tantra festival in the world that I know of so far
Oh.
that centers Black women in our pleasure. Everyone is welcome. We center
Yeah.
Black women and femme in our pleasure in the event, which, to me, if we can start with that as a center, then everyone also by default will be exposed to the pleasure. So it's this year will be held in Tulum, Mexico, October 8th through the 15th. And we have a complete resort takeover, so it's just us. We have a sex temple that we'll have set up. There's classes that you can take, workshops. Everything is all inclusive. So once you register, you get to attend all the workshops and everything. We even have a Reiki attunement. So if you've never practiced Reiki, you can get level 1 attunement during this week by attending a class every day in the morning. And so there's all of this fun. There's we have a sweat lodge, and there's just it's a really beautiful event. Please put it on your calendars. It was a passion project that's actually how we started the institute. So I decided that I was going to host this event after going to a lot of festivals and not really feeling fully embraced. And so we created our own, and it's been beautiful. It's been the diverse dream that I imagined. And so I'm excited for this year. I'm excited to welcome more people. So please feel free to come and join us this year. The theme is Tantracella. So we're doing a little play on Coachella because we're really
Yes.
yeah.
Where do they go? Because I did this little ticker. Where do they go to register for that?
So you can go to atltantra.org or atltantrafest.com. both will get you there. You'll click on retreats and festivals, and so you'll see it there.
Okay.
And yeah, and then there's tons of more information about me and my work all on both of those sites.
Yes.
And you can also, I'm ATL Tantra everywhere: Instagram, Twitter, Discord. So you can find me in most places there as well.
Yes. There's also your contact information. Yes, if they want to
Yes.
get with you directly. I know I will be in touch with you directly if that is okay.
Absolutely.
For some collaborations and some things. I have so many more questions. And then thank you so much for being here with us. And Kiss and Tell, we also have our podcast again on Tuesday. Dr. Jenny, what is it, March 8th at 7 p.m. And we're going to have Samira. And she specializes with Muslim and sexuality. So she's one of our writers for Kiss and Tell. Please join us. Amina, again, thank you so much for being here with us, sharing your wisdom and your sex magic stuffs that you've learned and practical tips that we can have. I will definitely be in touch. And for those that have questions for her, please send them in to us, send them directly to her. And we look forward to having more of these conversations. Dr. Jenny, take it away if there's anything I missed. Thank you so much, Amina.
Can I add one thing really quickly?
Yeah,
just because
please.
of sex tips, for the sex magic tips, which we really didn't get a chance to go back to, but there's I have an ebook available on Amazon. It's called The Breath and Stillness of Sex, and it has sex magic tips, practical, easy to follow. There's exercises, really easy to follow. It's a short read. It's only about 30 pages, but it's packed with good nuggets for all bodies. I know, Stephanie, you talked about working with people with ALS and Parkinson's. I used to actually work for the Muscular Dystrophy Association. This is stuff that all bodies can do, no matter what ability you are at, where you're at in your sexual practice and journey. So I just want to say that too.
What was it called again? Just for anybody who is...
The Breath and Stillness of Sex. It's a Kindle book on Amazon.
Oh, you said it was Kindle.
That's wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll promote that in our monthly obsessions.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you.
That's
and it'll be my monthly
article.
Probably my tomorrow. I might download it.
Yes.
Yes.
Again, Amina. Thank you.
Thank you so much
Thank
again,
you so
Amina.
much.
Thank you, all of our listeners. Keep
Thank
joining us. We'll see you on Tuesday, everyone. Send in your questions.
Thank you so much,
Take
Amina.
good care.
Thanks, ladies.
Yes, thank you.
And broadcast.
All right.